First and last name. And
Lisa Bosch, and I live in Daytona Beach.
Lisa what?
Lisa Bosch.
Thank you.
I live in Daytona
Thank
Beach.
you.
And I'd like to, I first comment that I know everybody here is getting bombarded with the campaign literature in the mail. And it's so full that I can barely get my mailbox open every day. And I took some time to really look at it and read it. And I was a prosecutor in Broward County, and I've tried over 100 jury trials, and I know the system inside and out, and I know how it works. I know how cases are pled, I know which cases are pled, I know which cases go to jail, you know, which cases go to trial, and what the sentences are. It's just not even, you know, an issue here from what the candidates are saying. But my question is to Mr. Larizza, and I saw this on your flyer. I saw that you were claiming that under your watch, the crime rates have decreased by X percentage. And then I also know, being a prosecutor, former prosecutor, that a lot of cases are pled. I'm wondering how you can explain the consistency between your statement that under your watch, crime rate has decreased, while we know that a certain percentage of cases are being pled.
Well, because one of the things that I think is accounted for that is there's some folks, as a prosecutor, I'm sure you know, that I call irredeemable. They're going to continue to violate the law, whether they're burglars or thieves or they're pedophiles or they're violent offenders. Those people account, in my humble opinion, for a larger percentage of crimes than the one-time offenders that get in trouble, get on probation, and don't get in trouble again. You can have an impact upon the crime rate by getting rid of the folks who create most of the crime. There are a lesser number, I believe, than overall number of folks that get in trouble in our criminal justice system. And part of this career criminal program that I have is an attempt to do that.
Well, national crime is
please.
down, I think, generally. I don't know how he attributes it to what he's doing on his watch. I think generally it's just down.
Are you saying your watch is stronger than what's all around you?
No, what I'm saying is that ask Mike Chitwood. He said it on a news conference the other day. Homicides are down in the last year in Daytona Beach 51%. Now that's a local statistic that he quoted. Ask him if I'm saying that we can have a local impact. Yes, crime has gone down nationally and over the state of Florida. Does that mean that what I'm doing and putting away these folks has no impact? No, it has an impact. And I see it based on what we're doing with these gang cases, with the racketeering cases, with our crimes against children, the internet crimes against children cases that we're working. I believe that we are having an impact locally.
But Mike Chitwood's murder rate is down. 5 murders, but there's 17 in the unincorporated areas just outside the city. So what's the difference?
Well, I believe Ben Johnson also said that the violent crime rate was down by a substantial number, more than the average crime rate down in the state of Florida. That's what I'm saying.
Let me ask both of you, because it's like one says the numbers are valid, the other one says they're not valid. In the end, do the numbers really mean anything? Is the public trust what Judge wants to expand on that?
No,
What's
I
the
don't
bottom
think,
line here?
like I told you early on, I'm not a numbers kind of person, and statistics are not going to dictate whether or not I'm going to take a case to trial. I think that justice is not served by just going, just to make sure that you get to watch your statistics. So that's not anything I'm going to keep track of.
Henry, the prosecutor has a follow-up question.
Oh, sure, please, ma'am.
Please, if I misled, I'm no longer a prosecutor, but I was
Understood.
in my earlier part of my career. And I still am having trouble understanding the connection of Mr. Larizza, you taking credit for a decrease in crime rate where there are so many factors that are involved. There's the police, there's how much action they do on the streets, there's whether there's an arrest, there's whether your case files the arrest as a criminal action, there's whether or not the case goes to trial, there's whether or not it's pled. How are all those steps, how is that reducing crime? And how can you take credit for a reduction of crime that is statistically happening anyway? I mean, I want to look at I want to be able to look at the literature and say, you know what, this candidate's telling me the truth. He's my state attorney and he's telling me the truth. I want to be able to say that, and I just have a problem putting those two together. It's great to say it, but how are they correlated? Please tell me.
Effective prosecutions. If we were coming in and not effectively prosecuting folks, and they were getting back on the streets, they'd be out committing more crimes. And locally, I've had law enforcement in this county say that they have seen reductions in their crime rate that are above what the state average is. And I believe it's because, one, the deterrent factor. By identifying the repeat offenders, you get one off the streets for a life sentence, they're not going to be back out on the streets anymore committing crimes. In the case of the Bloods gang leader, he's got a life sentence and he'll no longer be able to lead other folks in the Bloods gang. And when we got those 13 folks off the streets, the sheriff said that there was a 25% reduction in their burglary calls. Now, I'm not making that up, and I think as a prosecutor, anyone will understand and agree that if you effectively prosecute and get the repeat offenders off the street, you're going to have an impact and you can reduce crime.
Excuse me, former prosecutor, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
He mentioned Chief Chitwood. He's known in circles as Microphone Mike. He gets in front of the cameras, and what I find is when they're in trouble, they have these drug raids, and it's like picking apples out of a tree, and they got the convictions, but then they're out the next day anyway. Can numbers really be manipulated that way?
Well, that was my question, and that's what I was concerned with. I mean, I think it's easier for a person running for law enforcement office to say, oh, under my watch, crime rate has decreased because I've done X amount of arrests. I've taken all these people and I've taken them out off the street. But the prosecutors, they get them after that. And there's so many steps before those people are actually prosecuted.
That's a good point. Is she saying that you get what they produce for you?
Right?
But
I agree with that.
But across the country, Daytona Beach per capita has the worst murder solvability rate in the country. So what do you do if they don't even come to you to begin with? How do you say crime is down?
What we do is the ones that do come to us, if we can get some of them off the street and they don't come back on the street, then I think that's what I'm talking about. The ones that we do get. Didn't we just have a question about why we have this situation where people keep coming back, they keep 15 or 20 convictions? Well, we need to say stop to that. So when we got somebody that we can put away that's got a lot of convictions, they're not going to be back to commit the crime and get caught the next time.
Are you putting them away?
Yes.
Is he, Judge?
What he's doing in his literature, he's just,
Not his literature. Is he putting these people away?
no, not from what I see.
Okay. Anybody else have a thought or a question? Before you go a second time?
Yes.
Is there anybody else that's been
Anybody
left
else?
out that wants a shot? Okay, it's yours. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Please
Thank you,
identify
sir.
yourself again.
I'm Andrew Juton from DeLand. This is for both of you. First of all, just a point of clarification for Judge Warren. When were you most recently elected as county court judge?
I was elected in 1990.
No, when were you most recently elected? Or did you not have to stand?
Yes, I did, but I didn't have opposition. It was 2 years ago.
2 years
So I
ago.
had 4 more years on my term.
Okay. For Mr. Larissa then, and I do want to give you a chance to respond also, Judge.
Sure, thank you.
For Mr. Larissa then, should Judge Warren have fulfilled the term that she was most recently elected to before she sought out another term for a different position? And then I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Folks make decisions, career decisions, and I'm really not sure how to respond to that other than say that was her decision to make. Whether or not some of the folks felt like she should have stayed or not, I don't think that typically has a bearing on our particular race, but thank you.
Well, Judge, let me ask you this. It's not unusual for state attorneys or assistant prosecutors, especially assistant prosecutors, to go for judgeships. I can think of a dozen people in the last 7, 8 years that have either been appointed or run. Brian Feigenbaum, Don Fields, the Willis, who's the guy there? Raul Zambrano. It's really the exception that a judge would become a state attorney. Why? For you, why now?
Well, you have to remember, I was a former assistant state attorney for 6 years. That was a very gratifying position. You really felt great at the end of the day when you can do something to help people. And then I went into the criminal defense practice, where I learned, I think, all the tricks of the trade of criminal defense work. And I felt very balanced, having been a prosecutor and a criminal defense lawyer. And I felt that the next step in my career, I could do a good job as a judge, because having been on both sides. And after having done that for 21 years, but having watched how the state attorney's office is basically crumbling in front of me, I was frustrated the way things were being handled.
When you say crumbling in front of you, what do you mean?
Well, the way the cases were being handled, you have a lot of new people coming into the state. That office, you talk about a revolving door of criminals, you ought to think about the revolving door of the prosecutors at that office. I know that they lost prosecutors that became judges. That's one thing. But there's been other people who have just left voluntarily, and I've asked them, why did you leave such a great job? It's fulfilling to be a prosecutor. And they feel the pay wasn't appropriate. Other people were getting more pay for less work. They felt that there was too many cases to handle, not enough help. It was just very, very frustrating for them. And I think that with my experience and knowledge about how that office, and seeing it from where I was sitting, I could do a better job. And it was for that reason that I did that.
They say, it's a cliche, but it's in a professional wrestler, shows you my mentality, Ric Flair, he says, to be the man, you've got to beat the man. Can you beat him?
Yes.
Can she beat you?
No.
Why not?
I'm running on my record. I believe we've done what we've done, the right things for the right reasons. And I think there's enough people out there that see that and understand it, not taking platitudes and vague anecdotal statements that so-and-so said this is going on and that's going on. Let me give you some facts. Recently, we've had 2 prosecutors who left to go into private practice that came back to the office for less money, one almost $15,000 less, because they went out and they saw what was out there and they wanted to come back.
Was it the economy?
It was they were making more money where they were.